Hello and welcome to Modinomics 3.0. On the show today, we have with us Jayant Sinha, former chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance and former Minister of State in the Finance Ministry. He's someone who has been formulating several budgets and has a deep understanding of India's economy, politics and policy architecture. He joins us days ahead of the first budget of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's third term. Welcome, Mr. Sinha. Let me begin by...
Thank you for having me, Siddharth.
Thank you for joining us. Let me begin by asking you, what does India's economy need at this stage, and what would be the topmost focus area that you would want this budget to push for?
Siddharth, this is going to be a very important budget because in the interim budget, the Honorable Finance Minister had made it clear that the budget that would be presented in the next term would really lay out the roadmap for Viksit Bharat, which the Honorable Prime Minister has set out as a goal for his government and for India so that we can have a developed country by 2047. The roadmap for this is going to be laid out in this budget. And therefore, I think there are going to be 4 or 5 very important priorities that will be discussed, and I'm sure the Honorable Finance Minister is going to lay those out very, very clearly in the budget. Number one is, of course, the macroeconomic management of the overall economy. Now, over the last 10 years, as per the charts that you're showing right now, Prime Minister Modi ji's government has shown very deft macroeconomic management. We've stabilized the macroeconomy, and this has really set a very strong foundation for growth. So this priority, I think, is going to be maintained, and we are going to see a lower fiscal deficit. We're going to see spending on capital expenditure and so on, which is all around deft macroeconomic management. The second important area, which of course is also a signature achievement of Prime Minister Modi ji's government, is really the extensive social welfare schemes that we have created. This, of course, include the direct benefit transfer, the Garib Kalyan Yojana, Ayushman Bharat, what we're doing in housing and so on. And I think there will be a significant effort in this regard, particularly in housing, particularly in rural and urban housing. And we will continue to build out the social welfare system. So I think that will be a second very important priority. The third very important priority, which again has been consistently demonstrated through the various budgets, is an increase in capital expenditure, productive capital expenditure, to build out the roads, the highways, the ports, the airports, that really will drive our economy over the next 10 or 20 years. So as you know, capital expenditure in the interim budget was shown to increase to 11 lakh crores. I think we'll maintain that momentum and infrastructure will continue to get built out. The number 4 priority is going to be in further reforms that will streamline our business environment, that will make it easy to do business and will enable our startups to prosper. So whether it's refinements to GST, rate simplification, whether it's further improvements to our labor laws, there will be a number of, I think, important reform steps as far as competitiveness and ease of doing business is concerned. And then the final priority, which was a surprise, but a very welcome surprise in the interim budget, is the focus on research and innovation. As you might remember, Siddharth, the Honorable Finance Minister in that budget had laid out the idea of a National Innovation Agency with funding of 1 lakh crores to really drive R&D across the economy, to really position India to be a world leader in many advanced technologies as well. So this push towards research and innovation, the push to strengthening our universities, our IITs, I think this too is going to see significant attention in this budget. So all in all, as I said, we are going to see a clear roadmap laid out for how we're going to achieve Viksit Bharat. Let me also add, final point, which also the Honorable Finance Minister mentioned and the Honorable President also mentioned in her speech, was really the emphasis which cuts across all of the areas that I mentioned, and that is for green growth, investments in climate, investments in net zero, so that even as we build the economy, we also bring down our carbon emissions and make it possible for us to combat the very major crisis that the world is dealing with, and that's associated with climate change. So cutting across all of this, I think is going to be a tremendous emphasis on climate investments and green growth.
Do you feel that the recent political verdict in the Lok Sabha elections also makes it important for the government and budget policy makers to respond to some of the issues that we have seen, for example, on jobs or rural distress, the narrative that continues, and the decline in consumption as a consequence?
I think the elections for the ringing endorsement of the NDA government came back with a solid majority and also a tremendous vote of confidence in favor of the Honorable Prime Minister's reform and economic policies that have been followed. And as I said earlier, all the important priorities that you're going to see in the budget, whether it is to strengthen the social welfare system, rural housing, building out infrastructure, focusing on competitiveness, all of these are going to assist in creating high quality jobs, bringing investment into the economy. And when we create high quality jobs, bring investment into the economy, we are going to see more consumption. We are going to see a situation where young people are going to feel like they have an exciting future ahead of them. And we will be able to provide hope and optimism for the future.
One of the narratives, and you said the context for that, is basically long-term development. Most of the investment that the government is doing will yield results in the year ahead. But there seems to be a sense this time around for immediate relief. The middle class wants some amount of tax breaks. You know what's happened with inflation. It's been controlled, but there's a real impact that people are feeling. Corporate India got a big fillip in 2019, but middle class India has not got it. Where do you stand on that? Time for some tax breaks?
First of all, I think the tax exemptions should actually be inflation adjusted. And around the world, typically you'll find that whatever the cutoffs are for taxes, they are always inflation adjusted. So I think that makes a lot of sense if we can inflation adjust some of the limits, whether it's the 3 lakh limit, the 5 lakh limit, those can in fact be adjusted. Similarly, various allowances as well. So for example, there is a senior allowance for medical care that also can be inflation adjusted. And I think these inflation adjustments can definitely make a big difference to the middle class. In addition to that, there are areas where you can do more encouragement of certain types of investments, certain types of savings. So, for example, if you look at housing, we know that housing is a sector which has very significant multiplier effects. So, if we increase the limits for tax credit, tax reduction when it comes to housing interest, I think that will provide a great boost to the housing sector. It will put money in the pockets of the middle class as well. And will have a tremendous multiplier effect on the economy. So that is going to be a big boost. But the most important boost for the middle class, of course, is control. And the RBI has been doing a very good job here of inflation. When we control inflation, we bring down interest rates. When we bring down interest rates, EMIs come down. And that's as well. Macroeconomic management, good inflation management, is the best thing that we can do for the middle class.
Mr. Sinha, while you make those very valid points, the sense one gets is that as far as the tax department is concerned, there is a lot of interest in pushing the new tax regime where there are no exemptions and therefore some amount of higher take home for a certain set of earners. Is that the way to go about it, given again the context of prices and the pinch that people are feeling in certain areas of consumption?
We obviously have to do more for promoting consumption. But as I said earlier, Siddharth, the most important thing to do is to create good, high-quality jobs. You create good, high-quality jobs, you create more taxpayers. Let me add that, the number of taxpayers has gone up during the 10 years of Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji's government from 3.25 lakh crores to now 8.2 lakh crores. So the number of taxpayers has increased dramatically because we've simplified taxation. We've increased the exemptions and so on. We brought more people into the tax net. We've obviously been able to increase GST collection and so on. So as far as taxes are concerned, further rationalization, further simplification makes it easier for taxpayers and at the same time increases tax collections. And that allows us to invest more in the economy and create more jobs as well. That is really the virtuous cycle that we need to be focused on. And that really sets us on the path for sustainable 7-8% growth, which is the most important thing we can do for the economy. If we are focused just or constantly on just one-time tax cuts, a little bit here, a little bit there, that I think overall distracts us from the long-term direction that we need to be on, which is bringing more people into the tax net, simplifying taxation, increasing tax collection from people who are not paying taxes, improving compliance, and then generating that as investment through multiplier investments in capital expenditure and research, etc. That is the virtuous cycle that we need to be focused on. And as I said, we've increased the tax base dramatically. Even if you look at GST, previously we had 98 lakh indirect taxpayers. Now we have 1.4 crore indirect taxpayers. So this increase in the tax net, this rationalization and simplification of taxes, that's really what our focus should be. And that's what sets India on the long-term path to prosperity.
Apart from the buoyancy that we have seen in direct and indirect taxes, in fact, indirect tax collections have done so well that there is some amount of discomfort around the data release. But the question I have for you is, how should the government, how should the finance ministry seek to utilize the bonanza that the Reserve Bank of India has given in terms of the dividend, far higher than expected, and there are demands that that should be used to, top up the giveaways?
The RBI has done a wonderful job in terms of how it's managed currencies and the buildup of its reserves. So that has been a very good performance by the RBI, and we have to commend, their performance over all these many years in doing so. So what we now need to do is to take this additional fund that has come from RBI, and let me add also through the excellent performance of our PSU organizations, particularly our public sector banks, that have done extremely well in terms of their profits and their dividend contributions. So this extra money, I think, can really go to three sources. One, obviously, to reduce the fiscal deficit. We had announced that we would try and target 5.1%, but perhaps we can bring that down a little bit further because of the RBI dividends that we have gotten. So that's one place where we can put the money to work. The second place that we can put the money to work is to actually increase some of the support that we're providing for our important social welfare programs, like rural housing, for instance. Rural housing is a long-term asset that will get created. It also creates employment, and it has a multiplier effect on the economy as well. So rural housing could be another area as a welfare support payment that we could put some of this money to work. And then the third one, which I mentioned earlier, is one that will have the most impact long-term for the economy. That is the spending on research and innovation. So if we use the money that we're getting, the extra money that we're getting for reducing the fiscal deficit, putting it to work on these important welfare programs like rural housing, as well as in research and innovation, I think these are the ones that are going to have the most long-term impact on the economy.
Mr. Sinha, one of the features of this government is that for the first time, after 10 years, the Bharatiya Janata Party on its own does not have a majority. There are crucial allies who have supported and the formation of the third term of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Given the coalition partners, and we have heard from one of them from Andhra Pradesh seeking state-specific resources and various other demands, including even from Bihar, how do you think the budget will be able to tackle those demands, and do you sense that some amount of coalition dharma will find its way into the budget document?
Coalition dharma has been absolutely a fact of life for Indian governments for a very long time. I must add that both of Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji's governments have been governments of the NDA. And so we are very experienced in dealing with all of the requirements that you have when you're running a coalition as large and as effective as the NDA has. And of course, there are legitimate demands from every state, including, of course, Andhra Pradesh and Bihar. Let me add here that the total expenditure of India's central government is about 47-48 lakh crores. 47-48 lakh crores. That is a very significant expenditure by the central government. And in that very substantial amount of money that's dedicated, there is ample room to be able to meet the legitimate needs of all of our states, including states like Andhra Pradesh and Bihar that require special assistance and special support. So I'm sure the Honorable Finance Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, working with their analysts and their policymakers will find enough opportunity to be able to support all our states, particularly these two states. As I said, it's a very ample sum of money, 47-48 lakh crores.
You said that there are legitimate demands. Given that in the past, the government has not accepted demands of a special category of states, and that category seems to have been done away with. What do you think is the best way to accommodate these demands? Is it just the central budget or a mix along with the forthcoming award of the Finance Commission?
Siddharth, there are many different ways in which support can be provided to all states. Obviously, as I said, we have a very large budget now. We have a lot of revenues coming in from taxes. So there's the central budget. We also have the ability for states to be able to make capital expenditures and to be able to borrow against that. We've opened up that window of 1 lakh crores for states to be able to borrow from that. So many states have, in fact, been borrowing. That window has been used up quite substantially. As you point out, there's the Finance Commission as well. So again, providing support to states really is something that can be done through multiple mechanisms. And the Honorable Prime Minister and Finance Minister are adept at that. So I have full confidence that all states are going to be fully supported through their development journeys.
Let's turn our attention to one more key feature on which a lot of analysts are looking very closely towards this budget. For 4 years now, the government has prioritized public investment from the budget to boost infrastructure as part of the overall capital expenditure theme. Yet, there are expectations that the private sector should also now pick up. Our bank balance sheets are in perhaps the best shape that we have seen them for years. What do you sense needs to be done to trigger private sector investment, and really how much can the budget do in that regard?
The budget can do a lot, Siddharth. As I said earlier, one of the priorities is ease of doing business, competitiveness. The PLI schemes in that regard have been very helpful and very potent. You've seen that Apple is building out iPhone manufacturing ecosystem in India. 1 lakh crores worth of iPhones are being manufactured. I believe about 1.5 lakh people are already employed in this. And all of this is due to the PLI scheme. If indeed we also simplify and rationalize GST, we deal with some of the inverted duty structures that we have in certain industries, provide more PLI support, undertake some of the labor reforms that are happening, make land acquisition easier for us, for our companies, which in many cases has to be done by the state. These are the kinds of mechanisms that will really spur and drive more corporate investment. Let me add here, Siddharth, that we have an incredible opportunity when it comes to climate finance and climate investment. For India to reach net zero by 2070, which is our target, we have to spend trillions of incremental dollars. Incremental dollars. These are not money that would have been spent in any case. These are incremental dollars. In fact, there's $1 trillion that's required in the next 10 to 20 years. Now, if that $1 trillion, a lot of it being foreign capital, comes in as corporate investment in India to build out, a power system that is driven by renewables, to build out battery storage, pumped hydro storage, to electrify our transportation, to change our industries, move them away from fossil fuels to electric solutions. All of these investments will add at least 1% or 2% to GDP growth and create millions of green jobs. So the booster that we have available to us right now is, in fact, investing in climate finance, investing in these climate opportunities, and really beginning to drive growth as well. And that's all largely going to be private sector, because buses, trucks, cars, two-wheelers, four-wheelers, wholesale power generation, storage, all of these are corporate investments. And as I said earlier, there's $1 trillion that we can put to work in the next 10 or 20 years, and that is going to massively increase corporate investment as well. So whatever government does to support green policies also is going to provide a very big boost to corporate investment.
The GST is no longer a subject of the budget, because that's now for the GST Council, the State and Centre Council to discuss. But since you spoke about it, what kind of reforms does GST require? Because let's say it were to be done sometime after the budget, it would be kind of a double-barrel positive impact on the economy and on people's lives. What would you suggest the GST Council needs to address on priority?
So that the GST has been a historic achievement. Let's take a moment and step back and recognize that the incredible reforms that we have undertaken of India's indirect tax system through a federal architecture, through a very complicated set of implementation steps, and revamping 37 indirect taxes, is a tax reform that has not been successfully achieved by any country in the world. So this is a signature achievement of Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji's government, and it is a tax reform that is unprecedented in its scope and its impact. So GST has done extraordinarily well. GST collection as a percent of GDP has continued to go up. And now we are in a position to build on those successes and actually further rationalize and simplify GST. I think when we do that, as I said, we've got 1.4 crore indirect taxpayers, GST taxpayers. I think that number will increase as we simplify it further. We've got a number of rates that we can simplify. We've got some implementation issues that we can solve.
The budget has a lot to do. This is the first budget of the third term of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and a lot of expectations centered around what will the government do to not only retain the political momentum, but to ensure that the speed and stability of India's growth continues to remain enhanced. Mr. Sinha, thank you very much for your time with us to set the agenda for Modinomics 3.0. We'll continue to focus on budget expectations in other shows. For now, I thank you for tuning in. With that, it's a wrap on this show. See you soon.